All right, welcome to LaraChat Live, episode 38. And my God, are we consistent? It's been really hard to find some time to get us all together. And even at this point, it is just the least popular LaraChat Live members in myself, Sean, and Eric. Nobody likes us, nobody cares about us. But here we are grinding away.
I've managed to isolate everybody but you, Sean. Somehow you keep hanging on. I'm trying to turn everybody off. So what's going on, man?
Well, Christmas is coming up.
You guys celebrate Christmas up there? I wasn't sure. I wasn't sure what the rules were. We just wrapped up Thanksgiving. I don't know if you understand what that is, but that's an American holiday.
Yeah, we have Thanksgiving, but we do it right. We do it in what is it, October, not November. That's bullshit.
Did you guys steal your land too? I'm just curious how that happened.
I don't know, but no. On the Christmas note, no, we do Christmas, and one thing is Santa comes to us first. We're closer to the North Pole, and if he has time, then you guys get whatever's left.
What's been going on, my friend?
Well, we've been having trouble being consistent with these podcasts, and you and I are just slammed with work, trying to do too much. I guess for myself, just being an engineering manager and running a team of 40 devs really keeps me busy and drained at times, and then doing side work, my own project. I relaunched the LaraChat website with we're showing community articles, events.
Oh yeah, we need to talk about that. Now you did such a fantastic job on that. And it was weird. Typically, we'd been working so close together on a lot of this stuff the last couple of years, and then you just like redid this out of the blue one day, and it just you just mentioned it and sent it in our little internal Slack. I'm like, holy smokes, that is really nice.
Yeah, it started off with our sister site DevOps chat, and I was like, you know what, I want to put a little bit more together than just a simple landing page, and let see what I can do. And then the inspiration hit. Well, I could totally do this for LaraChat. Why don't I? And that's what I did. No offense to you guys and not including you. I mean, your work sucks. We know that, but that wasn't the reason why. I just, had an inspirational weekend, and it's like hammer this out and get it done. And we had a great time building it, and it was a blast to do. And yeah, I love the look and feel, the layout. I hope people out there enjoy it just as much as I do, and hopefully you.
So where are you getting what's populating the articles? Because I noticed there's just a stream of articles coming in now.
Yeah, I have it listening to some RSS feeds, and I know there's Laravel News and a lot of other content aggregators for the Laravel space, and I really didn't want to step on their toes. They're doing a fantastic job. So I was hoping to try and find some articles that maybe the lesser promoted or whatever. Plus, also articles that are very interesting too. So I was just trying to. I've been trying to put those pull those in via the RSS feed, and then I have I go through every single day, and I find, oh, this is interesting. Oh, this is a really cool article, and then I set it to be parsed, and I have this API, machine learning type of API, I guess, that will scrape out the content, try and put together some meta information, summarize the text, and it outputs it.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely become one of my go-tos every day now. As much as I like Laravel News, you definitely seem to be getting a much broader stroke here. Is there an RSS feed specifically for the articles site. I looked for that the other day because I wanted to start pulling this into my RSS reader, but I couldn't find one.
You're talking about for LaraChat, or an RSS of the articles that we are trying to share and promote?
Yeah, the articles that you've curated on LaraChat, the website. When you go to larachat.co and you click articles, is there a way to get that in the RSS feed?
You know what? I didn't even think about building that. To get
You
that.
should,
This
yeah.
weekend, yeah, I guess this weekend I'll have to get busy on that.
And it's a great curated list. Yeah, right off the bat, I mean, I haven't even been there today, and here's this Firebase real-time database in Laravel app. I'm like, oh, I'm looking for this. It's a good article.
Yeah. And it's been beneficial for myself because it's forcing me to look at these articles and I guess expand my knowledge and really make sure that what we put out there is interesting. So it was fun to do, and here we are. Same thing with the DevOps stuff. I'm getting to learn some more on the DevOps realm and share information and help people learn more about the DevOps space. So,
Yeah.
But enough about me for right now. I know you have big news. I know you've been sharing it on PHP Ugly and any other pedestal they put you on.
Pedestal. I have to build my own pedestal. That's the way. That's the only way I get to stand on a pedestal. Yeah, I kind of had a coup. I performed a coup on you, no less. The three of us, you, myself, and Matt, have been friends for a long time, a couple years now, and that in my world is a long time that anybody stays friends with me that long. But we've been bouncing off business ideas and working on little side projects together for a while, and turned around and ended up acquiring one of Matt's ventures. And it was funny because I think the last LaraChat we had, you were asking him about it, and it was we had just gotten in the middle of negotiations on acquiring getmissioncontrol.io, which is something that Matt had been working on for a long time. And I so wanted to spill the beans right there. And I was actually leaving it up to Matt to spill the beans. I'm like, if he says something about partnering with Diego Dev, I'll back him up, but I'm not going to say anything. But yeah, we ended up acquiring Git Mission Control from Matt. Matt's still on as part of the acquisition. He's going to stay on the project for probably at least a year, or at least 6 months. I forget what the contract was. He's still developing it. He's still giving his input, and we're working together. But I'm super excited about that. And then this week we finally got to open up the new Diego Dev offices. Being a fully remote company for so long, and then establishing an office was kind of weird at first. And it's only an office. It's like we have desks for all the developers, but nobody has to be here. It's kind of their decision on if they want to come in and when they want to come in. And a lot of it has to do with whatever projects they're working on, if they need to get together and brainstorm and whiteboard. But we have a nice little office now to come to. And things are going well. I tell you, I can't complain. I feel so fortunate to be able to make a living doing something I enjoy so much. And it's been a crazy ride.
Yeah, but on that note, I think like one of the things that my personal motto is do what you love, or what is it? Do what you love and the money will follow, or do what you love and you'll never work a day in your life kind of thing. So it sounds like you're having that kind of fulfillment, which is amazing. Please don't respond right away.
Yeah, we're still figuring out, there's still little things, but yeah, it's been fantastic. Yeah. So you have 40 developers under you? Is that what I heard you say earlier?
Well, there are two engineering managers here, and we have a staff of about 40, close to 40 engineers, 38, 39.
Are you mainly a PHP shop, or do you have other technologies you guys work on?
Mainly PHP. So what I've been doing for the last, I don't know, maybe year plus, like we used to hire full stack, and I started to realize, and this is how I guess my mind has kind of changed around the word full stack, where I think there's some people that can pull off front end and back end, back end being
Mhm.
PHP, back end being the database, and all that front end being JS, HTML, CSS. There are people that can pull off both sides amazingly well, but I find those people are much more, they're rarer. You
Mhm.
yourself, you're more of a back-end dev. You're like me. You don't really want to play around with the CSS and so forth. I like the back end. That's where I prefer to be. Um, and if I could help it, I do not want to be touching HTML, CSS. It's just not. It doesn't interest me. So started looking at that as we were, growing as a company and getting up to the close to 40 engineers we have. I just kind of had the realization when assessing people's skill set that some were really strong in the back end, really interested in the back end, and the front end was just something that they didn't really. They I would say not that they weren't interested, but the passion wasn't there. They didn't have that same level of passion that they had for the back end, and then vice versa. So it started, placing people into roles where they could succeed. For those who love the front end, great, you're going to do front end tickets, and then instead of having a feature where someone drives it front end, back end, start to finish, we wanted to put the best people on the front end side of things, the best people on the back end side of things. So instead of having a disjointed experience where the front end could be better or the back end could be better, we have the best working on where they should be. And that's kind of been our whole philosophy of trying to make a separation from full stack to specializing on their skill set. Um, and I think as you mature as a company, you start to place people in those kind of buckets to make them successful. But when you're a smaller company, which is where this company was, I want to say 3, 4 years ago, it you have to put people into a full stack kind of role because you can only afford to hire so many people, and you have to make do until you can get to that point to have that separation. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, it's always nice to have those specialties. I mean, I know for us specifically, one of the components we're missing is just having an ops person, not a DevOps person, but an ops person. And whenever you can have people who are specialized and have a high skill set in a very targeted area, it's extremely beneficial. But like you said, there's a cost associated to that. We've been kind of moving more towards that direction, whereas up until maybe 3 years ago, everybody on the team did everything. Now we have developers who are just mobile developers. We have developers who are just kind of front end developers, and it's not that that's the only thing they can do. They definitely reach out and do other things, but that's their target. That's their kind of realm of expertise. And you know, we're at a point in our growth where we're able to start to do that, and I'd like to continue that a little bit. I mean, I got a couple more. I wouldn't mind hiring like another front end person, hiring another mobile person. We got a good team of back end developers. I mean, I think that's where a lot of our team is strong at. Um, but yeah, operations. I mean, operations is killing us because we never planned on being an IT operations group, right? A systems administration group. We were tooling up to be a development group, but our bigger clients, uh, in their eyes, we're just their IT department. I mean, that's just the easiest way for them to deal with it, and it's worked out really well for us because fortunately, a lot of us have a lot of the operations skills. It's just we're every hour you put towards the operations is an hour you don't have towards development. So, but yeah, I mean, I guess to answer your question, it's nice. It's nice if you can afford it. It's kind of hard to do when you're a small shop, but as you get bigger, you almost have to do it, because that's where you really start to see that growth.
Yeah, I think that's where, like, if you're a small startup and you're a non-technical founder, it is incredibly hard to hire. You have to trust your hires are going to be strong enough on both sides to deliver that experience that gets you those customers. I don't have any silver bullets or solutions on how to manage that, but I can certainly see how it's very hard for a non-technical founder. And for myself, when I've done some advising to startups in the past, and mentorship towards them, then helping them scale up their team and grow their team from startup to those next stages of hiring their first 10 developers, 20 developers. And some of the things we talk about are the separation and the trust and the setting responsibilities accordingly. That's one of the biggest things. Is I think on our last show it was Joe who said something about what was it? Help me back me up here. It was something like hold your standard true but loosely.
Joe, I wish Joe, you need to tweet that quote out because I get asked so many times what that quote was.
Yeah, he did tweet it, and I retweeted it, but I'm not going to look it up now. But essentially, you hold your code, your standards, you hold them strongly but loose, meaning like people can walk all over you and they do it this way, and it ends up being the wrong decision. But the person who is the leader, the CTO, the architect, the tech lead, the person leading this, they're responsible for delivering. And if it doesn't work, well, that's on you. You have to take that responsibility. But at the same time, when you start growing and you bring new people on, you're hiring them for their knowledge just as much as you're hiring them to work, hiring them to do lines of code. So you want them to bring their knowledge, share their knowledge, and that's where I think you can hold it loosely, where you can learn from them and say, oh, I never thought about that. We can do it that way. It makes more sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, and of course, I'm trying to go through our company's Slack because I must have posted that like a dozen times in our company's Slack because people kept asking me, "Hey, what was that quote that the guy said on LaraChat last week?" Yeah, that was inspirational. So inspirational, I can't remember it. But terrible. This is why I'm not good at my job.
Yeah.
Some
CTO you are. And, shout out to Joe. He's at a bar in San Francisco. I had a beer and raised it for him, but he wanted to come on, but we kind of organized this a little too late. Too bad. He could have been here to really back us up.
Yeah. So what's been going on in the Laravel world lately that has your interest? Anything special?
You know what? Has Laravel done anything in the last 2 months?
I mean, it's been on cruise control pretty much, right? I mean, Laravel, the last couple of releases, which is not a bad place to be. I mean, it was for so long was kind of disruptive in the framework space, introducing Composer and all that, and it was doing a bunch of new introducing new workflows and patterns, but everything's kind of settled out, and it's kind of been in cruise control, which is as a company who uses Laravel to develop, that's a good thing, right? You want that. You don't want all the disruptive releases and drastic changes of folder structures and namespaces, but so yeah, not a whole lot. but they did release their Lyricon information. Does that interest you at all? Lyricon 2019?
Well, to be fair, I was being a little bit sarcastic there about them not having done anything, but you do make a really good point more on the technical side. So let's cover that, and then we'll go into Lyricon. So
Okay.
I think it is actually really interesting because I found myself the other day thinking, oh man, thank goodness I started this app using 5.6 or 5.7, whatever it was, and I don't have to do any drastic changes to introduce a telescope or put in Nova or Horizon or Dusk or any of these really cool packages. I mean, Marcel and Fraker, they did that WebSocket in PHP one that just came out. I mean, that's why I was thinking, man, if I had started this project 3 months ago or 2 years ago, would I be able to be using all of this stuff? I'd have to spend a lot of time keeping this up to date. So yeah, you're right. It's been a very nice, stable time for that ecosystem while getting some really cool tools to help us out with our daily development. So aside from that, Lyricon, amazing site. Jack McDade outdid himself. Jack does Statamic as well, which is a fantastic DMS admin panel type of tool. Used it way back in the day when it was a flat file system, and great work. But yeah, what do you think about the site?
It's cute. PHP World just recently did something similar with their conference this year, where it was like the retro 80s video game theme. So there's something about the retro 80s video games that are just like coming back. Matter of fact, for offices here at Diego Dev, I bought a retro 80s arcade machine for the developers that has like 100 of the old Atari video games in it. I mean, Centipede and all those. It's kind of cool. So it's kind of, as a kid of the 80s, I mean, I'm having some PTSD and having all this come back, but it's fun. I don't know about New York City, man. I know. I hear the Taylor likes to keep Lyricon on the East Coast to kind of accommodate travelers from Europe. But New York City, that was such an expensive conference. Even though the conference itself, Taylor does a pretty good job at keeping it at a reasonable price. I don't think he posted the price for 2019 yet, but for the most part, the conference itself isn't too expensive. But just getting a hotel, staying somewhere in New York City is not cheap. It's so expensive.
Yeah, you said 80s kid. I swear you would not be an 80s kid. I thought you'd be like an 80s teenager and adult. Like, come on, are you lying to me here?
The 80s, the 80s was pretty much childhood to teenager was my 80s. Yeah, right. Yeah. But by the end of the 80s, I was starting my life as a young adult, and obviously at the beginning of the 80s, I was still a little snot-nosed punk kid.
So you can say you understand it. I'll take that. Yeah, I didn't realize PHP World had an 80s site. I'm gonna have to go and check that out. As a real child of the 80s, really brings me back. But no, you're right about the cost. I mean, for myself, like I mentioned, I'm now managing the team here, and that's where I've started to wonder, oh my God, can my company realistically send me, or should we send some of our developers? Do you send an engineering manager to a Laravel conference, or do you send the developers? So if I'm being fair, I send my developers, but if I'm not fair, I want to go.
It definitely, Laravel is. It's definitely Lyricon is definitely a developer-focused conference. Of all the conferences I go to, Yeah, sometimes it's heavy with the vendors and talking about products, but Lyricon is definitely one of the ones that you send developers to.
Yeah. So, and I was talking to one of the fellow who came with me last year, and he's like, "No, you got to go because you know a lot of the people there, and you can introduce us to them." And I'm like, "Yeah." He's like, "Yeah, you're like a C-level celebrity there." I'm like, "C." I think I was thinking more like D, E, F, even.
There is definitely the social aspect of it.
Oh,
I've been to enough conferences now where I think I've seen all the talks. I mean,
yeah.
there aren't that many like talks that blow me out of the water, but I still go to them because that's where I see people like JMac, and I have time to sit down, have a beer and talk to the guy. I ran into JMac at PHP World, both him and Joe,
Mhm.
and it's just it's your opportunity to strengthen those relationships. And I tell you, I mean, in our industry, you can never know too many people, because you're always going to find yourself up against a wall fighting a problem, and then you're going to remember, oh yeah, I remember I spoke to that guy at that conference, or that person, when I went to this conference over here, and she was working on something similar. And you reach out to them, they remember the conversation, and you help each other out. And it's so valuable. That's always, I tell people all the time, I understand that conferences aren't cheap, and if you have a company who can pay for you to go there, you definitely should try to find at least one or two, even if they're local. Like, you don't necessarily have to go to the big ones like Laracon, but if you have a regional PHP conference, or whatever your platform of choice is, go there. Go to your go to your local meetups. I mean,
Yeah.
we talk about that all the time, right? You and I are both community leaders. We both have our meetups that we run for our local areas. So definitely go to your local area meetup, but treat yourself to a conference every year or so, and get out there and expand your friendship, because those this world we live in today with Twitter today is an example. I mean, Sean reached out. I think it was about 4:30. Said, "Hey, are we going to do a LaraChat?" I'm like, "Let's see if anybody else is interested." I pinged Joe. I pinged JMac, and both of them responded that they weren't home drinking whatever they were doing at the time. But we have that relationship because we are able to carry. It's able to carry over from the times that we meet each other.
Yeah, and I'll touch on the meetup thing too. Like, I mean, there's a lot of people that come to our meetup, and they don't know anybody. They don't know where to find a job, how to break into the industry, or find a new job. And they come to the meetup, and one of the things that we do at the end of every meetup is, put your hand up if you're looking for a job. Now, put your hand up if you're hiring. Now you know who to talk to. Kind of facilitate that introduction, and that's the biggest thing is, just as much as you go to a meetup to hear somebody talk or practice their talk for a future conference or share some knowledge, you're also there to network and get to know these people. Because I think that's one of the biggest things is developers. We're typically extroverts. We prefer to sit on our computers and not have to see each other face to face.
It's the other way around. We're introverts. Developers are introverts. Yeah.
I don't know what I was thinking there.
But yeah, you're absolutely right. Yeah, and it's definitely challenging to come out of that shell, out of that comfort zone. But it's so beneficial. I rarely find somebody who comes up to me and says, "Yeah, I started going to meetups. I started going to conferences. Worst mistake I ever made in my life." Just not a conversation you typically have.
No, that's not common, and if it happens, I think it's an outlier.
Yes, yes.
So, so the other thing, like Lyricon, I want to get back to that. I am hoping to go. every year I put in some talk ideas, and every year I get rejected. So I expect more of the same.
Yeah, I'm very curious about what the selection process is going to be this year. He's come over some scrutiny, and I'm not going to dodge the bullet. I've been one of them on PHP Ugly, but he's come over some scrutiny over the last years of his selection process with talks and kind of cycling through the same speakers every year. So I'm curious if that's going to change up at all, or if it's going to kind of be the same typical Lyricon speakers with a few new faces rotated, and be interesting to see. I'm pretty sure he does a call for paper. Like I'm almost positive I saw him announce a CFP a while back.
I don't know if it's officially announced. I'd have to check, but I feel like I saw a tweet earlier this week that when they launched it, that they were going to open it up soon.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean,
it must be great to be in a position like Taylor, where I'm sure he has no shortage of just fantastic speakers, you know. And because I know, I mean, just with our little conference that we had here in San Diego, Wave PHP, I think we ended up getting submissions from, I forget what the number was, but it was some crazy amount of like 130 speakers submitted to Wave PHP. And we're just talking, you know, some fantastic talks. It was funny. Our selection process was because we were trying to figure out how we were going to narrow down all these talks, because I'm definitely guilty of it. Like I'm almost a fanboy of the PHP community, and I see a certain person submit a talk. I'm like, oh yeah, I want this person to speak. I'm like, that's not really fair. I need to see what they submitted. So what we ended up doing is within Diego Dev, we released all the topics, the talk topics and descriptions to everybody within Diego Dev without the author. Like they didn't know who the speaker was, just the title in the description. And all the Diego Dev developers voted on what they would be interested to see. And that was how we kind of did our first round of, okay, you know, here's the block of talks we have to deal with, and we started whittling down from there. But it's tough, man. But I got a question for you. I mean, we started talking about this a little bit on the last show last month, but we didn't really follow up on it any. We started talking about what you want to see from a conference. So we're talking about Lyricon, talked a little bit about Wave PHP. We're trying to plan Wave PHP 2019. And I'm just curious, like, one of the things that a lot of people came to us about, and in my head, it's like, yeah, I understand what you're saying, and I would appreciate that too. But at the same time, as a conference organizer, I'm worried that I'll lose potential ticket sales because of it. And what that was is, so we were a 2-track conference. If you came to Wave PHP, neither track had any particular topic, that it followed, or any skill set it followed. It was just kind of random. Like the skill sets and the topics were random. And one of the most probably requested thing of the conference was to have a track specifically for advanced PHP developers. How do you feel about that? Because again, as a developer, I love that idea. Those are the talks I gravitate to. But as an organizer, I'm like, oh man, if a newbie comes to a website and sees all these advanced talks, they're going to think that they're out of their depth and not come to the conference.
Yeah, that's a really interesting one, because the more, I guess, intro basic topics, I could end up going there and just being bored, learning nothing. And then I walk away feeling like, oh my God, I just spent X number of dollars on the ticket, flight, hotel for this? Really? The flip side of that is I don't know. That's a really hard one. I honestly don't know. I mean, if you're going to do two tracks, is there any harm in doing an advanced track and a beginner's track?
Yeah, and I think that's kind of what we're leaning towards this year. It's just, again, the organizer in me is worried that somebody who is a newbie or who isn't very skilled will look at the schedule and see all these advanced talks and not see the more intro level talks, get scared off. The other issue with the advanced talks is they start to get specialized. It's like, as a PHP developer, yeah, there's advanced topics I want to hear about, but there are also advanced topics that I don't necessarily care about, but would still be considered advanced PHP development topics.
I think you're like on the actual website where you show the schedule. I mean, there's a way in the UX to define advanced and beginner, and
Sure.
and also don't forget, like if you look at you know this more intimately than I do, but if you look at the people who attend the conferences, and you've been to a heck of a lot more than I have this year, it might sound bad for the group, but the people who go to these conferences, it almost feels like a PHP circuit. They're just almost the same people I see the same people that I saw in Seattle, that I saw at Wave, that I saw at Lyricon. Kind of like a traveling band of.
No, you're right. And as a matter of fact, the one thing I was going to point out is typically when you go to these conferences, the people who are looking for the more advanced talks are typically like the speakers, like the people who are going to have been to a lot of these conferences. And you're not wrong. I mean, there's definitely a circuit of PHP conference speakers, and there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, if you're a good presenter, you have good topics, and you want to go from conference to conference, doing your talks, more power to you. But that's where I start to get like a little concerned, because when I look at who attended Wave PHP, if I strip out all the presenters, all the people who spoke at PHP, and try to figure out how many were advanced developers, I don't know. I don't know if I have a 50-50 split there. I think it would be more like an 80-20. And that would be my thing, is if we had a track focused on advanced PHP topics, how do you get those advanced developers to come to your conference? Because so many of them are in a position where they don't feel like they need to go to a conference, or exactly what you said. They go to conferences and it's the same talks over and over again. They don't need to go see those again.
Well, I think one thing that keeps coming back to my mind is when I think about Lyricon, the one that I really enjoyed, the first Lyricon I went to was in New York, and a fellow was Tom, and I'm forgetting his last name, but he did a talk on what is it, when you can have multi-tenancy, and it was a very technical talk, but he did it in a very interesting way that I think was accessible for newer developers. The code may have been maybe a little bit out of their grasp, but it was certainly something that they could take in and go back to and say, what did Tom say about that? But again, you can't control what the presenter is going to do. That's just Tom, who did a fantastic job there. And some of the other memorable ones, I mean, there was Caleb Perozio, who works for Titan, and at the last Laracon, he did a talk about how he sets up Vue and his form request and to work within Laravel. That one, it really, I really remembered that one, because again, it spoke to me as more of an advanced and having I guess a little bit of a higher technical understanding. Yeah, that again, that's just me personally, where those ones stuck out more than the people who are commonly at all the Lyricons, for example, like Adam Watson. He does a fantastic job at his talks. I mean, like he does the live coding. Not many people can pull that off, but I still rate, let's say, Tom talk over Adam's talk.
Mm-hmm.
I guess that doesn't really answer the question. It just speaks more to me personally.
No, but I totally understand what you're saying. I mean, I look back and I think about the more memorable conferences I went to. And I think it was the second year of Lyricon in Louisville that really, really kind of sparked something in me. And sitting here today, I can't tell you what it was, but there was something about the lineup. It was something about the talks. It was something about the way they were presented. Everything was just perfect. Maybe it was me. Maybe it was the place I was in at that time. But trying to capture that year, because I know as somebody who's gone to Laravel year after year, I know there have been ones that I've completely enjoyed and other ones that I could have done without. So, I mean that holds true. Yeah, I don't know, man. It's so hard. It's so hard to kind of get your head around that and to make sure that you deliver. Essentially, you're trying to deliver a product that more people like than not like, and it's tricky when you start talking about the more advanced level talks, because those are harder, and it's harder to find those good presenters. I mean, people like JMac is, those guys can step up to the plate, but they're good for one or two talks, and you need to do 2 or 3 days of these talks. It's challenging.
Yeah, and I'm thinking about the meetup we do here, where we allow people to have talk more advanced topics, and we've had people talking about there's this or the PHP and this tool called Swool, or I guess some kind of real time. Yeah, I'm not going to go into it because I don't know enough about it, but it was much more of an advanced talk. And I think the presenter did a great job in making it accessible. Maybe that's the idea is if you don't have an advanced and beginner track, one of the mandates for the CFPs is that regardless of whether your talk is advanced or intermediate, it's making it accessible to everybody. You can show advanced examples, but there's a way, an educational way that we can present it and teach the individuals, I think, that they can benefit from. And I don't know, I want to go back and watch Tom talk and kind of maybe see if I can pinpoint the certain things that made it really accessible for newer developers and made it really interesting for more intermediate senior developers.
Yeah. Okay, so we've been rambling for about 45 minutes now, and we were worried we weren't going to have enough time, but I do want to touch on the other topic I pulled up. And I don't know if I sent it to you in Slack or not, but did you see the latest Laravel survey?
I saw it. You know what? I'm going to pull it up here. I saw it. I read it. Well, sorry, I should say I glanced at it. And I didn't really take anything in. Sometimes you just skim something and nothing, you don't remember anything. I'm just going to look at it here. So what stood out to you?
The one that stood out, probably, well, they're controversial ones that I'm like questioning. But the one that stood out to me the most, that I'm like, what can we do to change these numbers? As they had one of the questions are you able to find quantity and quality of Laravel developers you need? And it was close to a 50-50 split. I think it looks like 400 voted yes, 350 voted no. It's like, wow, it's like people are still having that much trouble finding good Laravel developers. I don't know. I mean, what are your feelings on that?
I have opinionated opinions about that. This could end up getting me flamed.
Hey, don't worry. I'm used to getting flamed, so it's not that bad of a thing. You'll live through it.
Yeah, tough skin. I'm feeling my skin feeling tough enough today. So I think that comes down. I don't think that's a Laravel thing. I think that's a developer thing. Um, I think there are a lot of developers in the world who treat this as a 9 to 5 job, and that's totally fine. And then there are developers who treat this as their life, their passion. Like me, I code when I work. Well, maybe less now because I'm managing, but I still code. I code when I go home. Coding is my hobby and my job. So because of that, I feel that I've been able to learn a lot more, be a bit more advanced than, let's say, some other people, take in some experiences that other people maybe haven't had in terms of maybe building an application that needs to be scalable or just different concepts. And a lot of people, if you look at what we really need in terms of a Laravel website, how many of them need these crazy job system, queue systems, and relying on, I don't know, needing to be scalable. Uh, where if you scroll up one on that chart there, Laravel is mature and robust enough, and enterprise project is really high. Um, oh, there it is. What size of Laravel project do you work on? Medium projects, enterprise, and then small.
Mm-hmm.
It all depends on what someone defined as a medium project and an enterprise project. But the reality is, I think if you're doing more enterprise projects, there are different solutions to the problems you have with regard to the scalability problems you have. So medium project you might not touch on those kind of things, and that's where maybe people might have a hard time because you're getting somebody who just knows Laravel CRUD,
Mm-hmm.
your basic modeling, and then another problem that we have is we get people who are Laravel developers, but not so much PHP developers. So
That's very true.
yeah,
That's very true. I've actually come across that, which absolutely fascinates me. It's like how are you a developer of this framework but not understand PHP?
on the
It's
flip side, how are you a PHP developer when you can't understand the lower level languages? PHP is just a framework around what? C? And then what? C is a
yeah.
framework around what? Like, I don't. That's a little bit of an unfair statement. It's not incorrect.
I was gonna say I think that's a little different, but yeah. I get what you're saying. Yeah.
But that's the thing is like, if you have an amazing framework like Laravel and Symfony and whatever, I mean, there's people out there who make a living off of WordPress, and that's just the reality of it. They don't have to know PHP.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. WordPress is another one of those niche markets where you may just be a WordPress developer and not consider yourself a PHP developer because you don't do PHP. You do WordPress,
Yeah.
and you know how to manipulate the WordPress stuff. And yeah.
Yeah, so the other thing, like that also goes back to the enterprise versus medium. I'm curious, like I almost feel like this could be a little bit skewed because let's see here, 861 people work on medium-sized projects, 381 work on enterprise, but 1,069 work on or 1,069 say that Laravel is mature and robust enough for enterprise projects. Do you think that's skewed at all, or do you think that's correct?
Well, I mean, yeah, it's definitely skewed. All right, you have Laravel developers answering a Laravel survey. It's going. You can't help it not be skewed. The only way it would not be skewed is if you had a bunch of enterprise developers answering this survey after playing with Laravel for a little while. But I don't think it. We had this conversation on PHP Ugly as well. There's a lot of discussion around, is Laravel enterprise and can you use Laravel in the enterprise? And the way I look at it is they're two different things, right? Is Laravel Enterprise? No, it's not. In my opinion, it's not. And there's a reason for that. It's not the code base. It has to do with the support systems around it. And we don't necessarily need to get into all that unless somebody has a question about it. But all that means, and as somebody who's worked in the enterprise in the past, all that means is, so the flip side of that coin is can you use Laravel in the enterprise? And the answer is yes. The code base itself is mature. It's a strong code base. So if you work in the enterprise, typically the difference is to introduce Laravel into a project, you have to have contingency plans. You have to sit through meetings and explain why you want to use a solution like Laravel, which might not allow you to have a support contract with Laravel, the company, to support the code base, or have official training from Laravel, the company, or official certification from Laravel, the company. And these are all things that enterprise level solutions have. It's not just the code, it's all the stuff around the code. But
you're talking like Vend. Vend had their certification and all that stuff.
They have professional services you can hire. They have training you can hire. I mean, this is all stuff that, and they have support contracts you can have, because in enterprise, it's all a matter of being able to reach out for support when you're in trouble. And it's not support with third parties, it's support with Zen, the company. So as somebody in the enterprise, if you want to introduce something like Laravel, which is a perfectly reasonable solution to build applications on, it just means that you have to go through some extra steps. You have to explain what your contingencies are, why you're introducing it, do a lot of risk mitigation on, okay, if something breaks, if Taylor decides to come up with an upgrade, this is what, this is how we handle it. This is the testing. There's usually a lot more testing around unenterprise supported solutions. So, the question is very fair. Laravel is mature and robust enough for the enterprise. Absolutely. It's well thought out. It's well matured. It's got a good community behind it. It's a strong framework. So the code base, I would not hesitate to implement in an enterprise environment. But that's a different question of, is Laravel enterprise? And that is definitely not. So yeah, that's just how I feel about it.
Yeah, and I think code-wise, you said it, like, it is enterprise. I believe in terms of technology, enterprise falls more on the skill set of the developer. Can the developer code for enterprise? Do they understand what enterprise means with regard to, like you said, all these meetings around what happens if it upgrades or there's a breaking change? Do we stay at our current version forever? How do we mitigate risk around that? And then also setting standards around the code base and training your people. And there's a whole show that we could probably do about what makes an enterprise developer. So I won't go too much into that, but that's an interesting thought, because I never really thought about it in the enterprise model that you had talked about, basically the then model. Never thought about it like that.
Yeah. Somebody who worked many years in enterprise. Yeah, I'm very familiar with it. And it's crazy, man. I tell you, I mean, enterprise, you say enterprise, you're basically tripling the cost of something. Whenever something is enterprise, it's usually 3 or 4 times the cost of non-enterprise. But there's a reason behind that. I mean, there's a lot of support. There's a lot of agreement that's going on, and it gets nuts, I tell you. But companies, enterprise companies, and that's why you have enterprise companies, and that's what differentiates them. They're willing to dish out that money for that support, for that security.
Yeah, and you do look like you have a face of a guy who's been through the enterprise grinder. So
you have no idea. When I was there, just to kind of give you an example of how old I am, but when I was there, my big enterprise push was introducing Linux into the environment. And I kept explaining to them how much better Linux was for the company as a whole long term, as opposed to being holden to somebody like Microsoft. And that was my battle. That battle literally lasted 3 years before I got to introduce my first Linux box in my data center. And then, but it was only like a year or two after that where my environment went from one Linux box to 80% Linux to, it's crazy how fortunately, again, it was right at the cuff where I was able to start to mitigate the enterprise concerns with companies like Red Hat. But I mean, there were still the software issues like Apache, but yeah, we worked through all that.
Yeah, that's interesting. I know Microsoft has Azure now, and they've started to become really mature in the Linux web space. That's interesting to hear that years ago you went through that, trying to get people on Linux from Microsoft back then, when I kind of boggles my mind a bit. But
yeah, it's crazy.
So I say we're probably coming up to the top of the hour of just you and I talking crap here. I can't believe we pulled it off. I mean, to our loyal, we got 5 listeners. Hey, how about that? To our loyal listeners, we thought we might run out of topics after the 20-minute mark, and boy, did we shatter our expectations here.
Well, I'm glad you called me. We haven't been keeping up with each other as much as we used to, so it's good. No. It's good to talk to you.
Yeah, and I'm thinking, how we do the show every 2 weeks, or we try to. We do our best. We really do. But the following week, it will be the Christmas holiday. So I don't know. We need to talk whether we're going to try and do a show then, or I don't know.
Yeah, we can talk about it. I mean, it's after Christmas, a couple days after Christmas. So I don't know. We'll talk about it.
Yeah, well, let's see what we can pull off and actually try and give people more than half an hour's notice to get on the Hangout here. And maybe an hour. Hour should do, right?
Hour 15. I think we're good.
Yeah, they don't need much, right? All right. Well, let's call it here. It's been great talking with you. I'm glad we didn't have the others. It made for a greater show, I'd say. Guys, please come back. Please.
We need you.
Yes, so much. All right, Eric. Good talking with you. And thank you, everybody, for listening. And this is episode 38. Consistency. What is that? We don't have it.